Hi everyone, we're just waiting for everyone to join back from the breakouts for Hackle, so I'm sure everyone will be here. We've got about 30 people in at the moment, so we'll just wait for the presenters.
Oh.
I don't know about you, but I'm having to come in through Zoom because I can't get this to work at all in the format.
Yeah, same here. I'm not seeing Jamboards and things like that, but
I can see those, but I've had to run it as two separate things.
Yeah.
So I've got the main screen, but if I try and go into that through their system, it breaks up all the time. So I'm having to run Zoom on one screen and the main page on another screen so I can see what's going on. So colleagues, welcome back. Just talking about some of the challenges we're having. It's not the system's fault, it's my system's fault. It's my laptop is struggling with and I think our local bandwidth is a problem as well. The pleasures of Zoom. So I'm going to ask group leads to talk about what they think they've gained from this. So who'd like to start? Perhaps Clarissa, if you're on.
Yep, I'm on. So we've had some really interesting discussions surrounding care homes and research. It tended to then spin mostly around COVID. But I think what we've got the Jamboard, which Cal is hosting, so he's got the link to it. But I think four main points kind of emerged in those three separate discussions, people building on them. One was general lessons learned from this pandemic, and then how subsequently the social care sector and institutional long-term care can hopefully be improved. There was a huge thing surrounding information flow and lack of information flow and constantly changing guidance issues, but particularly between family carers, hospitals, care homes, that just doesn't seem to work. A really big thing was around mental health of staff, because it has had such a huge impact on their working hours and the roles they had to adapt to. So yeah, I think that stood out the most, but then also impact on residents in terms of can they socialize, the emotional impact on them. So those were kind of the four key points.
We had one came up in our group actually, Clarissa, which was about the DNR news today. Yes. Although I think it's worth getting into perspective that what the CQC is talking about is the number of complaints that they've had in this quarter that they were referring to compared to the previous quarter. It went from 9 to 40. And I think the way it's being spun in the news is giving the impression that this was a widespread practice, whereas in fact, you're still talking about a relatively small number of cases that have been brought to their attention. But it's still something perhaps we would be interested in looking at to see if that's a widespread problem. And we will be coming back. Pallavi, we need to set up the voting so that we can make sure that people are able to tell us whether they believe that these topics are ones that we should be working more on and prioritizing within the theme. Rhiannon, can I ask you if you want to talk, if you're able to talk about your group?
Yeah, sure. So we had a series of really interesting points made and discussions around those points. First of all, I think it was generally agreed that this kind of focus on work in mental health and well-being in community and of community activities is really needed because local authorities and trusts have been so stretched dealing with just the emergency that there's not been that much time to focus on these issues. And so it would be a good area to focus on because it is a gap. And then people talked about sometimes their experiences. So we heard that, getting back to normal it's not going to be straightforward. It's going to be a struggle. The path might not be that smooth. There's a sense that we need to pick up the pieces and reassemble the jigsaw of sort of normal life, a normal community, which is interesting. And in particular, it might be a struggle for those who still feel it's too risky to go out, those with health conditions, and also for people suffering from low motivation, which is of course a symptom of low well-being and depression. And so, the paths back to normality will differ according to your needs. The idea of a scope of activities that were going on in the Northwest Coast to support COVID, and then a deeper dive looking at what the benefits of those activities were for the volunteers themselves, and also for the wider community. And linked to that, some sense of volunteer opportunities having been lost as a result of COVID. Mari was saying that, and I think we know this, that many volunteers are potentially more elderly, and so will have been shielding during this time and have lost the benefits that volunteering had given them. And so some look at that loss and replacing that loss and emphasizing how you might do it differently was there. And then, like Clarissa, there was a lot of focus on people who've been working or volunteering and the impact of this on them. The idea that there's been a whole lot of responsibility taken on, but not necessarily with the sense that everybody has the same capacity to deal with these incredibly difficult challenges.
Okay.
And so some focus on that was
Great. I'm just thinking of the time, and I'm trying to see if we're able to do some voting on prioritizing. But before we get there, can I ask Sujit to briefly summarize what we were talking about in his group?
Hi. Yes, so we talked about the risk stratification tool, and we talked about the next steps in terms of the validation of the tool and what will be the methodology for validation of that tool and what the medium long-term outcome evaluation could look like. The next step will be to look at actually RFPV type grant proposal to do validation in terms of reliability and predictability of the tool in primary and secondary care.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're now trying to sort out some sort of voting. I was hoping that we'd have a poll that would say whether people thought this was a priority for each of the three things that have been talked about just now, the three areas. And if it was a priority for, they felt that whether they and their organization would be interested in participating, or whether it's priority and they weren't necessarily something that they would participate in, or if they felt it wasn't a priority. And I'm anxious that we didn't manage to get this to work last time, and it looks like we're not going to manage to get it to work this time either. So what we may need to do is email you all and ask you to complete a poll and send it back to us.
Sorry, Mark, I've just been trying to get it up, but I don't seem to be able to get in touch with them for some reason.
Yeah, I can see that. I noticed that Carl's put the Jamboard on the Zoom discussion rather than the our main one. Anybody have any comments on what they've heard? Well, we're trying to get the polling done. Right, I think it's just those of us on Zoom who are left. I think it's just you and me, Rhiannon.
All right.
Right, I think it's lunchtime. I don't think it's working as well in practice as we thought it would. Certainly not for me.
No.
But I think that's because we're having the problems. I'm not surprised. It's we've got a lot of participants. Anyway, right.
Okay.
I'm going to leave and try and.
I don't think I'll be back in, Mark. I've got teaching to do and then other meetings.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Kate and Clarissa are trying to sort something out for care homes, but Hi, Clarissa, you're on Zoom as well, are you?
Yes, it's much easier than being on that platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else on? Because I can see lots of people here.
I think probably people are
Devin
using
here,
it via
well.
the platform as opposed to Zoom separately.
Yeah, sorry, this
Okay.
is Stephen. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to do this on my iPad and the platform doesn't allow you. So I have to come out of the platform to then join the Zoom. And
Yeah.
then I can listen to the Zoom discussion, but then I have to go back and try and use the Padlet or the sticky things, and I have to come out of the Zoom and then, so yeah, it's I'm sure it can be work. It looks quite smart, but yeah, it's a bit, it's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky. So
So Adele, are you actually there? Or Nahid or anybody?
Adele was in our breakout room.
I saw Nevin was there.
Yeah, I'm here. Well, I'm on Zoom. It won't allow me. I'm on an iPad as well, the same as the.
Yeah, I just think so. I just hadn't realised that there were lots of other people on. They're all going.
Yeah.
As they close it down. So I can now see who's still on Zoom. So Mari is as well, I think. Hi, Mari.
Rhiannon, it'd be good at some point to have a chat maybe about the mental health staff angle, especially if people are interested in it. That came out from the long-term care discussion.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think that's a good idea. And I think it might be a good idea offline if Clarissa and Rhiannon had, when Rhiannon's got a bit of headspace, a brief discussion about what's happening about the care home